Now, object binding is great because it allows us to update our custom properties and then re-render the body so that we can update our view with the correct score or the updated value. But what about if I want to update the score from multiple different places? Maybe I have this stack over here in the content view, but maybe I have another view or another component down here, like a fancy score view, which can also update this score. Let's go ahead and do that without using the environment object. The first thing I'm going to do is add a new file to create my SwiftUI view, and I'm going to just call this a fancy score view. Fancy score view. There we go. The fancy score view is pretty much like the content view. The only thing it will have is that it will display it with different background colors. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to use a vertical stack. I will use a text which will display something. I will have a button, and the button will say increment score, and it will do something when we click on the button. But I want to make the button a little bit different, so I will go ahead and maybe add some padding and also a little bit of a background view or a background color of orange. All right, there we go. And for text, I'm going to make sure that text is a little bit larger, so font, which is large title. Now the question is that, first of all, how do I use the fancy score view into my own content view? Well, that's pretty simple because I can simply go over here in vertical stack and I can say over here fancy score view and use the fancy score view. And it's going to display right over here. Well, maybe we need a little bit of spacing over here. So maybe I can say spacer to add a little bit of spacing. And maybe even add a little bit more spacing on the top so everything can be in the middle. Okay, great. The fancy score view doesn't really display any score, as you can see. I mean, I can add a little bit of a padding if you want to. There we go. All right. Now I can go to fancy score view and I can maybe display 0 over here. Let's go to the content view, and now it displays 0. Okay, so what we want to do is when I click the increment score, this one, which is part of the content view, which is all of this, it will update the settings score by 1. But when I click on the increment score over here, how can I update the same setting score? Well, this is interesting because first of all, we're talking about the same setting score. So we need to pass this somehow to the fancy score view so that we can update. So let's go to the fancy score view. All right. And over here, maybe we can create a property. We can create a property called integer, or in this case, var score, which will be an int property. And it's also a binding property. That means that this property will be sent from somewhere outside. As soon as we use the binding property or add a variable over here, you can see that in the previews, it's actually saying that you need to pass it. So let's go ahead and pass this, and we will simply say constant value, which is 0, so that the preview actually works as expected. Now, when the button is clicked, I can simply say self.score plus equals to 1. So I'm updating the score that you are actually passing to the fancy score view. But if you go and check out in the content view, we're really not passing anything. So let's go ahead and pass it. So score, and we're passing in the settings.score. So we're only passing the score to the fancy score view. And inside the fancy score view, which is the bottom part, when we click on the increment score, as you can see over here, it updates the score. But that's the same exact score that was passed to the fancy score view that gets updated. And in that since the actual score of the settings get updated and all of this gets updated value. Let's go ahead and run it and see how it actually works out. Now keep in mind that we are not using environment objects right now. So I'm updating the score over here, but this is not updating. So let's go ahead and see what's going on. So inside the fancy score view, we hard-coded it, our mistake. Let's go ahead and print out the score. We will simply pass in self.score, which is the actual score that you pass in. Let's go back to the content view. Let's go ahead and run it in live mode. And this is great. Now we can click on the increment score, the top portion, which is part of the content view. But you can see the bottom portion, which is actually the fancy score view, gets updated. Now what happens if I click on the increment score of the fancy score view? It increments the other one also. This is great. And I can obviously add more of these controls like fancy score view 2 or some other score view, and then pass in the score as a binding property, and then it will get updated as soon as I update when the buttons click in the fancy score view. This works great, but the problem with this approach is that if I add multiple views over here that is required to display the same or update the same information, and after they update the same information it has to be reflected in other views, then I can't really do that without having to pass in every single time to each single view. That is too much work. So let's see that how we can use the environment object property wrapper to make things simpler. Alright, so here it is. I have actually ran the simulator, and now if I click on the increment score, you can see that it is being updated, and I can go to my fancy score view and update, and you can see the other one is also updating. So the whole point of using environment object is for those objects, those things that you want to share across different views. And this is exactly what we're doing. We are sharing the settings object across different views, and different views can update the settings object, which is the score property, and whenever the score property gets changed, then all the other views gets refreshed, as you can see. So it's really, really cool, and I suggest that you use environment objects very carefully, because I don't think you should be putting stuff in environment object if it is only used in a one particular view. So make sure that whatever you're putting into environment object, it is being used in other views. So a good example can be maybe you're using the username or some sort of a user ID. Maybe you're checking if the user is authenticated. Maybe you're using if the user has already seen some sort of splash screen or something. So, or some sort of a small settings. So these are the things that you should store in environment objects, which can be reused in other different views. Thank you so much, and I really hope that you have enjoyed these couple of videos. I really hope that you have enjoyed this video, and if you want to support my channel, then the best way would be to check out my latest course, which is SwiftUI Declarative Interfaces for any Apple device. This course is all about SwiftUI and how you can use SwiftUI framework to build amazing applications. This is around 5.5 hours on-demand video, plus more because I keep on adding new content. One of the great things about this course is that it doesn't only cover SwiftUI, but it also covers how you can use SwiftUI using MVVM design pattern, how you can use SwiftUI when you're building an application which is communicating with a JSON web API, and so much more. So if you want to support my channel, the best way would be to get this course, and the best way for you to get this course is to simply check out the links in the YouTube description. The links in the YouTube description already has all the coupon codes attached, so you will get the best price, and if you use my coupon, I get to keep more profits. So the course that you can get for the lowest price is $9.99, and the link to every course is already in the course description. So simply click on the course description. One of the links is SwiftUI, and you can simply go to the Udemy website and apply the coupon using the course link that is already in there. Thank you so much, and if you have any questions, please let me know.